Daryl Morey is a liar, rapist, liar, and he's fat, and he's white. Wait, Harden, what the okay. So we're going to start involving James Harden's $100,000 fine over falsifying allegations involving GM of the 76ers that kind of brought him into the fold so that he can contend for the Eastern Conference over Philadelphia 76ers president Daryl Morey, and saying that he wouldn't even associate being in the same, team associated with Daryl Morey after the fine. And sure, for like people like us, that's a damn near fortune. But for somebody like James Harden, it's probably pennies on the dollar for him. So suspecting any type of situation, because we know Embiid has less confidence in the Sixers' abilities to try to build a competent roster with the Sixers. Doc Rivers, if they're still trying to go a rebuilding unit where they spent half a decade sucking so they can actually get prodigal generational talent, only reliant on the draft and not better roster construction, and building, trying to keep a convenient 2 stars with them while they're still keeping guys under contract like Tobias Harris, that I think makes up the highest salary, while Harden was sacrificing a salary cut over 1 year of a full season with the Sixers after the Ben Simmons trade. So complications aside, it's still insane what's happening involving the Sixers front office. So I would say it's tread lightly. We're over that veto. That was the last headline we had involving the Damian Lillard trade. I don't know if they're waiting until the deadline, until he underperforms. Plus, Baker Mayfield is now the reported starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after getting in a starting battle over Kyle Trask over the offseason. So that's practically what happened. We had Myles Garrett convert his contract over, as well as David Njoku getting his signing bonus. That's practically the better, bigger news that's happening around the offseason involving some conversions. I understand this is a do-or-die situation for the Cleveland Browns, and trying to actually construct a competent roster. Plus, we don't know if we're still going to get a high Pro Bowl level season out of Deshaun Watson finally playing over a full season after allegations coddled him over missing a full year and not playing until week 11 for the Cleveland Browns. So we'll get some news about that soon. I'm still convinced. I'm still convicted over the entire season involving James Harden, and I'm not trying to say this as a dread, because I like James Harden's game. Just it didn't work when he was in Brooklyn. It didn't work when he was in Houston. It didn't work when he was in OKC, and most of the destinations he's been in over winning has been over his choice. But we can't say it's his fault. We can blame it on Doc Rivers' postseason accolades, not going up to terms, but do we have to really blame the coach, or is it executed by the teams at the end of the day? Because last time I checked, it wasn't the head coach it wasn't D'Antoni that went 0 for 27 on the field in the Western Conference Final. It wasn't with blowing a 2-0 lead against the Milwaukee Bucks to lose in the Eastern Conference Final against the Nets, or getting blown out by the Celtics in the first round. And this time, getting a 19-3 run while only making around 5 points in the Eastern Conference semifinal against the Celtics of the next year. Harden's what happened if you have world-class ability, but you have about just minor class consistency. because he is just such an anomaly that he's never going to be number one option again. And his production in the postseason kind of shows it. And I hate to say that, because I want James Harden to succeed. There's guys that have Hall of Fame careers in the NBA that are possibly never going to win an NBA title. Possibly Russell Westbrook, with the way the Clippers are constructing their roster, and they still have confidence over an injury-riddled Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, while Russell Westbrook was literally the best player in the postseason for the Clippers. And just knowing that we're possibly not going to be seeing much, because Embiid possibly is going to get spoken to by a lot of teams if nothing's going to go down around this situation in the offseason involving what's going to happen to Harden. If the Sixers didn't make a reasonable looking roster, and if Embiid still has the confidence to be there, what's going to happen? So that's practically the biggest amount of news that we have involving the 76ers, in the matter of fact involving off-season news. Because we still don't have teasers of what's going to happen with Damian Lillard, or even if he's even worth that sacrificial amount of future picks for nearly out of his prime but still productive point guard that can average around 30. It was just last year he even dropped a career-high 72 points. So we're not denying Damian Lillard's not great, but just sacrificing that to be a number 2 option over in the guard position for a lack of depth, with a Miami Heat team that's possibly a couple pieces away from finally having a contending team. Because guess what? They lost in 5 against the Nuggets, and they lost in 5 against the Lakers, but made it to 3 conference finals appearances over the past 4 seasons with Jimmy Butler. And just always trying to rush to get that all-star talent that has no conference championship appearances in his name, or just no postseason success, but can take over like that to have another ball-dominant player. You guys need to just focus on depth, because that's how the Nuggets made it. There's only like one All-NBA player on that Nuggets team, and they were number 1 in the Western Conference, so that tells you something. Roster construction's a bit better than back in the 2010s, when everybody thought just making like 2 to 3 All-Stars should be enough. So I feel like the Heat need to slow it down, because now Tyler Hero barely speaks about the Miami Heat. You have rotational pieces that are possibly going to be sacrificial lambs. We still have Kyle Lowry under contract. Jimmy Butler only has so much time left in still a high level of play. Even though he's one of the better players, he is not a number 1 option, especially to take the last shot of the game, because we know how that went. Chucking that dumb shit, and then the desperation 4-point play. He's just not the guy, and I hate to say that, because I like Jimmy Butler. And just the false news over Tyler Hero being healthy, just not to play him, because he's still rehabbing over his broken hand since game 1. So Dame should just suck it up and go to a possibly a more competent team that's willing to actually sacrifice a couple picks to try to redeem themselves in the postseason, unlike the Miami Heat, that just I feel like need a completely different roster construction. So that's just my opinion on the matter. Furthermore, we got some baseball updates to go through after the Mets just killed it against and the Mets are playing way better than the Yankees that are now 60 and 65, even though the Mets are 59 and 68 after the deadline, after signing all those guys. They went a 7-3 shutout after starting a 3-0 run against the Braves, and then they won 7-3 with Pete Alonso. They were rushing good off base. They were getting some good RBIs up in midfield. And then here they are against an upset, a 4-3 shutout against the Chicago Cubs, while the Yankees lost 2-9 against the Sox. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, come on. And this time, Braves redeemed themselves. They won like 3-2 against the Braves. Edler went 10 for 4. McGill went 7 for 7. And Iglesias, they were base running, and we know Braves are the way better team in the situation. But, it's a way more entertaining series. I don't know what the Yankees are doing. I feel like culturally they need to change. I understand we had a good regular season run, but baseball is always going to be more adaptive and more on these young players. Things we're more reliant on speed, power, getting over a base. Because last time I checked, our rotation is completely ass. Gleyber Torres, Judge is still not in form because he's still coming out of injury. DJ LeMahieu is the only positive, while Giancarlo Stanton's like only with one base, and he was batting 196. He's ass. He's ass. Peraza's ass. The only person I don't mind is Bader, Judge, and Torres. And LeMahieu sometimes gets some good on-base percentages, but they're just not consistent hitting-wise, and their pitching is overrated. I hate to say it, but by God, anything to pray for the Mets, for the Yankees. They just need to just completely change it up. And I hate to say that, because some fans don't like the thing of like trying to freshen up their roster, go for a rebuild, because of course New York fans want to get in their bag and always feel like they should be in the mentality of contending. And I'm not down on that, but we should know that our pitching needs to change. We need a younger and more consistent hitting rotation, especially with analytics. And Yankees are, I guess, still over this standard and culture that is way out of date. Like a decade past out of date. Especially for how it is now. They need to fix it up. And losing and just having losing series against the White Sox, Cubs. They get shut out against the Astros. Blowouts in our series rivals against the Red Sox, and now we fall bottom of the division after we were up. Literally, we were like fourth in the division. We were better than the leading division leaders of both central divisions in both the National and American League, sneaking over a wild card spot. Now the Mets can do that. Like, what's the problem? I really need to know. And still, Jadeveon Clowney found an NFL team so he can just get a unnecessary roughing the passer penalty or a face mask penalty, and then he'll average around 2.3 sacks per game. But yet, running backs are like the more diminishing and disposable position. But Jadeveon Clowney can still find a job. I think he's playing for the Ravens now, by the way. So if you're washed, but you had some production, go to the Ravens. Oh, no, Beckham's there. So what's your excuse? But that's all I have for today. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the channel. This is Sidelines Productions. DST is signing out.